Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We have people joining in from all across the globe. A very warm welcome. My name is Shakti Prasad, and I'm your host today. I'm the head of content at Bero, and I run the Procurement Espresso magazine. I welcome you all to the seventh edition of Espresso Live event. This is an online thought leadership forum featuring procurement leaders and practitioners. Before I get started with the session, just a few housekeeping rules to be kept in mind. Housekeeping? Yeah. All the participants will be on listen only mode for the entire duration of the webinar. We will take up the questions at the end of the presentation, but we would encourage our attendees to key in their questions anytime during the session. Please type them into the question box given in your control panel. Now, this is not a very technical topic. This is a very general topic. So even if it's not a question, if you would like to post a comment, please go ahead and post it, okay? And we will read them. We'll read it for you. There could be a lag of a few seconds in between the transition of slides. So please bear with us. If you have any difficulty in joining the webinar, please try to log back in or key in your queries in the Q&A box, and we will try to help you. Now, I'm happy to introduce our guests who are separated by the proverbial pond, as the Atlantic Ocean is fondly known. Dr. Rob Banfield is the Distinguished Professor of Supply Chain at North Carolina State University, and he is joining us today from Raleigh in North Carolina. Adam Whitfield is the Quality Assurance and Audit Program Manager at Achilles Information Limited. So Achilles is a prominent supply chain auditor. So Adam is joining us today from the quaint town of Oxford. I hope you all can see both Adam and Rob on your screens. Rob is no stranger to the world of supply chain. Many of his former students at NCSU are now in key positions in large organizations across the globe, while few others have founded successful businesses. For his part, Adam is a specialist in auditing suppliers across the globe. And interestingly, ever since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, he and his team have done a number of audits, that is supplier audits, remotely while working from home. For the past year or so, a majority of procurement teams across the globe have been working from home. And as the vaccination program against COVID-19 ramp up in many countries, the question now is, will people be ready to go back to offices as they were used to in pre-COVID times? The reason why we invited both Rob and Adam for this session is that given their global experience in working with various stakeholders across the supply chain, they can offer a neutral third-party viewpoint on whether procurement operations can indeed be permanently managed out of employee homes. Well, I'm done with my somewhat lengthy introduction, and now let's get started on the discussion. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in order to get a clear picture on the back to office sentiment, we ran a survey among users of Bero Live, a community of thousands of procurement decision makers, to find answers to two key questions. That is, are procurement professionals willing to go back to office, and can procurement operations be permanently managed out of employee homes? So over 700 procurement and supply chain professionals from nearly 600 companies across the globe participated in the survey. About 80% of respondents were from North America and Europe. And today we're going to discuss the results for some of the questions from that survey. The survey had about 12 to 14 questions with a lot of comments. So if anyone would want to read that article, it's there on our website. You could check it out. But for this discussion, we have selected few questions, just to dig deep into this. So it's quite clear, a majority of the procurement professionals, as you could see, are continuing to work from home. Rob, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think this is representative of where most people are today. At least 2/3 of people are working from home full time, and there were some articles in the Wall Street Journal recently that talked about this, and like for instance, BlackRock said, I don't believe that we'll ever be 100% back in the office again. I mean, COVID occurred so quickly. People were immediately thrown, from their office into their homes, and then there's some thought about, well, what do we do now? And so I think a lot of organizations are in various stages of debating what it's going to be like. Jamie Dimon, for instance, from JP Morgan, noted that I think going back to work is a good thing, and that there are some negatives of working from home. Some people have had real bouts of alienation go up. They've had challenges in being able to do that. And I think one of the things that we saw is that people really are starting to miss the socialization of work, and have struggled with the dynamic of working from home initially. At first it was just things like, is the chair the right height, and what about the health and safety and the personal well-being? People are also uncomfortable at first with having people in their living room or their bedroom, but over time people have gotten kind of used to it, right? So only a few really are saying, well, maybe this isn't so bad. I don't have to travel to work. I don't have to travel back. I don't have to be on the bus or the train or the metro, and it's not too bad. And then people, I think, are now much more used to having the cat walk across the keyboard, or the kids screaming in the background, and they've gotten used to that. But there's definitely some problems with this. I think most people are comfortable in doing it, but there's others that are saying, I really do want to go back to work.
Okay, Adam?
Yeah, no, I'd echo what Rob has said, and really, I think certainly what we've seen is a hybrid way of working, with maybe where there have been reductions in transmission or in cases in certain countries or in certain regions. We've seen offices that have opened up maybe for a day or two here, or a couple of days here and there. Certainly in the UK, there was initially a bit of a push for people to return to work, but I think what you're probably finding is organisations themselves are risk assessing, or are reviewing their ability to return to an office environment, but then potentially have to shut that office and return home at relatively short notice. So I think really you're seeing companies that are on the side of caution, and continue to work from home and gradually return, depending on case rates and on the virus itself. I think as well there, certainly organisations may be accepting their own staff in occasionally, but they're not willing to let visitors in, people that they don't know necessarily. So again, there's less of a need. If we think about customer meetings, supplier meetings, and so on, they're not happening face to face in offices or in within an organisation. They're happening over the phone, or they're happening remotely, because it's hard enough controlling your own staff and knowing what's going on with them, without then also relying on people that maybe you haven't met, or people you haven't spoken to before, and then come into that environment. So certainly I know from for a number of factories and manufacturing facilities, they're operating now largely as they were pre-COVID, or close to, but they are not accepting people to come to their premises. So yeah, some of their directly employed staff are there, but those meetings from an administration role or an operational role just aren't taking place. So you're still seeing a large number of people at home at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Adam, next slide, please. So we asked people, would you be comfortable to work in a setup that has ensured enough social distancing? And a lot of people said yes. I mean, we could see some 54% of people said they'll be comfortable, and 28% said they'll be somewhat comfortable. And the negative numbers are perhaps a bit less. But so, what do you think, Adam, on this point?
Yes, I think certainly as people have depending on obviously the country, but with vaccination rollout programs and so on, you're seeing people that have maybe had one vaccine dose or maybe two vaccine doses that are potentially less concerned about returning to a workplace. Again, as we see cases potentially fall in certain countries, again, or even in regions, you're seeing people more willing to return to an office environment. I think personally, I think you've still got a split there. You know, if you look at, say, maybe I'm not comfortable and somewhat comfortable, I think as Rob said, with people getting used to working from home and some of the benefits that in terms of not having to travel or not additional hours up on either side, I think that the reason you've got a split is potentially that there's some people, again, if I think about people that are commuting from into city centres, maybe by public transport or longer distances, it's quite nice not to have to get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning to get on public transport or something to go to an office. They're more used to being able to get up, see children or family, start the working day and finish at a more normal time. So I think yeah, people are comfortable in returning because there's obviously added benefits from not working with a cat walking over the laptop or working on a kitchen table. But I think as well, you're seeing people have over the last 12 months have got used to some of the benefits that around that opportunity to work a bit more flexibly from a home location.
Okay, Rob.
Yeah, I would agree with Adam. You know, I think here in the U.S., many of the larger employers like Nike and Humana and others are cementing plans to review to corporate complexes after Labor Day, which is in early September. You know, I know my daughter; she's a college graduate. She has a new job. She's not starting till January at a large financial company, and so for her, she's going to go to Utah and work remotely from a nice place in Park City, Utah for the next month, which is rather nice. So one of the interesting factors here is, COVID put us out there in a work from home, but it's now become where companies actually are starting to worry about the brain drain from their ranks if they don't accommodate people's requirements. Some companies that are hiring say they can't especially find knowledge workers and highly skilled technical people that especially the new graduates that want to come in 5 days a week. A large software company, for instance, in Georgia is hiring for about 90 new positions, and they said they're eager to return to normal, but a number of applicants, particularly in technical and engineering roles, have said no, I want to be able to work from home. So it's become almost a requirement if you're looking for top talent, and these people have the option of being able to say, hey, if I don't have a hybrid working environment, I'm probably not going to be interested. And research is showing that most employees here, I think we'll see this, prefer some form of flexibility, and having a safe workplace, socially distanced workplace, is one factor that will be important in encouraging them to be able to come back. And so that's going to be it's a new world, and people are still trying to figure all this out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. In fact, looks like we moved on to the next slide, but it's actually very interesting because in the previous slide, we asked a question whether, would you be comfortable working in a socially distanced office? And in this question, we have asked, would you be worried about commuting to your workplace? And as you could see the numbers on the slide, majority of them have said they are not worried. But interestingly, these two questions, when we juxtapose to the next one, next slide, please, Mishtun, can you please? Yeah. So people are okay in an office that has ensured enough social distancing. They are not worried about the commute. But then let's look here. They say, given a choice, will you continue to work from home permanently? It's a resounding yes. And then we have given the a men-women split, and you could see women. That is, of all the women who have taken part in a survey, more women have said that they strongly agree as compared to men. Whether they would like to continue to work from home permanently. So the strongly and the agree numbers for women are slightly more than for the men, and even the other numbers match up in the same way. Uh, Rob, what do you think of this phenomenon? I know there is some kind of disconnect, don't you think so?
Well, I don't know if it's a disconnect. I would say that I think in most households, at least, women are typically more responsible for child rearing duties, and so they are going to be slightly more willing or wanting to work from home, which gives them more flexibility to deal with children and so forth. Men, on the other hand, I think, are probably tired of working from home, say, I need to get out of the house and I need to go to work. And that might be, an excuse that they want to get out of the house. I think they're regardless of the gender differences, I think there's going to be some very interesting new things that will start to occur in the real estate markets. I think we're starting to see that people will go into work if they have to do things that are collaborative, brainstorming, project work, etc. And that office accommodation will be therefore much more focused on collaborative space, more meeting rooms, project rooms, fewer cubicles. We're also more likely to see office space, located outside city centers, so that, as Adam pointed out, people don't want to take a long subway ride into the city, but if they can, get on a short bus ride or even a drive to a local location that has parking, and they'll be more willing to do that on a daily basis, which will give them the flexibility, to avoid that long trip from home to the office that's been, part of the pre-COVID environment. So, while the pandemic creates, uncertainty for organizations,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also an opportunity here for others to commit to a new way of working and to restructure not only their real estate portfolio, but the way that they interact with the workforce to give them more flexible options. Especially for that target demographic of women that maybe are a higher priority in many cases, and want that good work-life balance of being able to pick up the kids after school and still be productive and working from home.
Okay, Adam, your comment, please.
Yeah, so I certainly agree with Rob in terms of potentially there being some sort of more historical, traditional sort of things in play in terms of looking after the home and things like that potentially. I also think as well, and again, it depends on countries, but things like maternity leave potentially come into this. I certainly know in the UK where you have like statutory maternity leave and people, women going back to work full time, and potentially the additional hours at the start of the day and at the end of the day, things like that, removing that means that a parent is still able to be a parent and still have their child around them in early years, and potentially be able to reduce the amount of time that the children are going to childcare settings and so on. And then I think in terms of obviously the slide previously was talking about feeling safe in terms of commuting. It's not just about feeling safe. I think if I think about cities that I've commuted into and traveled into, it's not so much about feeling safe. It's the hassle of forcing your way onto a tube or onto a train, and everything that goes around that, things being cancelled, you're removing a lot of that that pressure or that stress that you don't need in the morning, you don't need in the afternoon on the way back. So I think it's a range of factors from that perspective. And then quite rightly, as Rob pointed out, and we've seen it here, particularly in the UK, where there's now quite a large movement of people from the city that are moving and are looking at suburbs to make their lives and their homes, because they've got used to being able to work from home, not have to visit the office so much. We're also seeing the repercussions of that in tertiary businesses that are sitting around side, so pubs, restaurants that maybe on a Friday after work would be busy and not so busy anymore. And you're also seeing as well offices that are now looking to relocate, again, as Rob was saying, into more into areas where it's easier for people to commute, or it's easier for people to be able to drive in, as opposed to have to rely on getting onto trains and other forms of transport. So I think it's a mixture of things. I think it's bigger. I think really what's happened is the COVID pandemic has opened people's eyes to the pressures around work, not the actual time you're in there, say 9 to 5, but the other bits and pieces that you never realize, because sometimes you never had the time to realize. And this break over the last 12 months of okay, yeah, I finished now, I can see the kids, they're downstairs, all of those kind of things have certainly it's opened people's eyes to or it's forced people to open their eyes as a result of it. And I think that's what you're seeing in the slides at the moment.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to that, Adam, is as I think about this, it's not just children that often have to be cared for. It's also elderly parents, and we're seeing that whole demographic shift where there's a lot of people now have elderly parents who aren't ready to go into a nursing home or what have you, or managed care facility and still want to live at home. And so you need to be able to check on them and be able to be flexible enough to go over there if something comes up, so that's another big issue at the moment for many people.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Thanks, Rob. Adam, next slide, please. Yeah, so we'd asked, the community members, do they agree if procurement operations can permanently be managed out of employee homes? I mean, it's a resounding yes. I mean, the numbers are very clear. And here again, we had given a men-women split, and as usual, women tend to vote more vociferously in favor of this question. It's not that men don't agree, men do agree, but just that women tend to agree on this question a bit more than men. In fact, we had also received a comment from a very senior C-level official based in the US who said that they had implemented a complete end-to-end procurement solution while working remotely, fully working remotely. That is including testing, QA, training, and support. Rob, what do you think of this?
Well, I think this is something that reflects the fact that many procurement operations today have moved into the cloud, and so at least from a systems perspective, I think people who work a lot on procurement systems, managing orders, managing requisitions, invoicing, those kinds of things. A lot of that stuff can be done from home. We did in the U.S. we interviewed chief procurement officers around the country, and we found that many of them, felt that their procurement systems, if they weren't in the cloud, they shortly after moving people home, they realized we need to do this as quickly as possible. So clearly there needs to be, some kind of systems available to be able to manage procurement from the home. However, I think it does depend on the role. So if you're for instance, if you're a category manager, more the kind of the strategic procurement, that's something that's going to require you to engage with people, with the business stakeholder, attend staff meetings, understand the requirements. Similarly, if you're involved in negotiations, you have to really acquire data from people, extract data from people, and data access in the form of qualitative information is a problem. If you have business systems that require access based on where the data sits, and then remote access could be problematic. But also, I think in things like negotiations, which are much more reliant on body language, people express the loss of these informal cycles of distraction we grow used to, or even a lot of the informal interactions that involve going to the coffee machine in the afternoon, which is a critical component maybe of getting to a negotiated settlement. Faster communication, which is less formal, has some pluses, and clearly, having that face-to-face interaction for certain types of jobs becomes really important. So I think a hybrid environment is really where we're going to for those roles that require that kind of face-to-face engagement.
Adam?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as time's moved on, obviously the use of cloud-based systems and web systems to be able to manage procurement has made things much easier. So I don't disagree that a lot of procurement and managing supply chain and monitoring of the supply chain can be done remotely. I think that even things to do with initial sifting or selection can be done remotely. If we think about different ways of maybe selecting a pool that you then want to engage with in further discussions. I think, and it might be my background being biased, but I think that there's certainly from certain things, audit being one, and ongoing monitoring, or if we think about engineering and manufacturing, acceptance testing, whether that's witnessed acceptance testing, where it can't be done remotely, you really need to be, some of it can be arranged remotely, but it still needs somebody to go there to do that, to get the best out of it and to look at it. Now, I do know some companies that have facilitated that through using like GoPros and video, literally, filming things live and streaming that back as part of the process. So there are ways around it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best way to go. And I think as well, as Rob has said, if we think about engaging with potentially new suppliers or new customers and everything that comes around the negotiation, it's the conversations that are had at random times when you're in the lift, or you're going for that coffee or for lunch or whatever, that you can't have over a Teams call or a Zoom call or anything like that, and you don't get that feel for how somebody is, and you're looking at a bedroom wall or you're looking at a kitchen wall. You don't have that full vision of being able to look out of a meeting room or walking around a workshop and seeing what's going on in peripheral vision. And I think that's important, and I think that's why it's reflected in your numbers there, that depending on the role, you've got, say, 60 or 70% of people are saying yes, it can be, but still there's those other roles and those people that are engaged in category management or in audit and inspection and monitoring that are saying, well, actually, no, you need to be there to actually undertake those activities.
Okay, we've been receiving comments, so I would just like to read a comment that is very pertinent to the point that we're discussing here. I know the audience Q&A is some time away, but I thought, why not read it right away? So this is from Don O'Hearn. So Don says, I appreciate the socialization to want to go back to the office, But what has been the risk or business losses in working from home, if any? So I think Don is basically saying, what's the risk if we want to work from home, if we just remove the socialization aspect?
Well, I think there's a couple of losses. To Adam's point first, to do an audit, I think, for instance, supplier audits have been more than 50% of them, at least in the pharmaceutical sector, for instance, have been done remotely. And there's definitely some loss, and I'll let Adam speak to that, but there's definitely some loss from a remote audit. You don't engage with people, you don't get the sense of what's going on at the facility. You just don't get that level of engagement. I think especially when you're working on as I said, strategic activities where you're presenting information on market intelligence, for instance, and you're discussing strategy, and you're doing project planning, where you need people in a room and you need a whiteboard and you need to get up and walk around and share ideas and interact and ask questions. Those kinds of activities, there's definitely a loss, on Zoom. It just is. And so I think what we're seeing is some organizations are saying, well, let's have people come in, because you're not maybe doing that kind of work, 5 days a week. So let's have people come into the office. Let's create a collaborative workspace that's safe and, possibly even require vaccination for people who want to work in that space, and give them the option to work from home if they don't want to be vaccinated. There's people out there who don't want to be vaccinated, and well, that's fine, but you can work remotely all the time. And then create those office spaces where people can interact, these collaborative workspaces. And some companies are saying you can come in anytime, but you just can't stay home on Mondays and Fridays. So they're trying to discourage, the long weekend, people taking advantage for the long weekend kind of thing, and putting in different kinds of policies for that kind of work. And I think if you have, a cadence where people can come in, know that there's going to be some collaboration. Thursdays seem to be the biggest day right now when people prefer to come in. Thursdays are a good day, and engage in those kinds of collaborative work sessions that are really important. I mean, that's where a lot of stuff gets done. I mean, some of my best sessions occur when I'm meeting face to face with people, and there's definitely a loss of that, I think, through technology-based communications like Zoom and other things.
Okay, Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a loss in productivity. I think that's been a concern for a number of years. I think that people, there's that concern about people working from home. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to do their jobs, all of these kind of things. But actually, people have fit their work. Okay, it might not be now 9 to 5 or whatever, but people are fitting in other arrangements, but the work is still being done. So I don't think there's necessarily, or certainly people that I've spoken to, have not seen so much of a loss of productivity as such. But I think there's a loss, or there's a detrimental impact on fatigue and the exhaustiveness of Zoom meetings, Teams meetings all day, every day. I don't know if people on the call are a little bit like me, but you could sit there at 8 o'clock in the morning, you turn around, it's like 6 o'clock in the evening, you realize that you've just been on calls and stuff like that. So I think there's some potential impacts to do with well-being of staff and fatigue that comes with that. And I think there's potentially also a loss of development opportunities. So again, if I think about starting out and you think about an office environment when you're new to that, it's those engagements with people that happen kind of almost randomly, as Rob has said about speaking to people, if you're grabbing a coffee or something like that. And I think there's that connection with people that maybe aren't directly involved in a call that you're in, and all of those discussions and meeting people. I think that certainly for people that are starting with a new organization that's working predominantly from home, I think that there's a the loss there comes from being able to pick up a lot of knowledge very quickly from people and building relationships with people in various different departments, not just your own, and those that you're directly involved with. So I think the work is being done. I think it's no different really to how it has been done, but I think there's a wider loss within development and so on.
Okay, so there are, I mean, the comments are flowing thick and fast, so I think it's better we make this as interactive as possible. There are two comments that I would like to read, Rob and Adam. So one is from Dominic Hawk. So managing procurement permanently out of homes does not depend so much on going to the cloud, but first you have to digitize your processes completely away from paper. So that is one comment. The other one is even more interesting. So this is from Steve Robinson. So Steve is saying, hey, I fully understand the comments you're making about the cloud-based as the way forward. My company, unfortunately, is insisting on a VPN system to access servers and data, and it has been a nightmare for us for the past 12 months. Very difficult when the decision makers are office-based. Would you like to go first, Rob, on this one, on both the comments? Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think digitizing procurement is absolutely the way of the future. Increasingly I see it being, more contracts are moving to a, like a DocuSign environment. I think increasingly also, we're going to be moving away from, just PDF documents and even more so to, HTML documents and being able to, to do searches and extract information differently. Honestly, I think the biggest inroads that we make in terms of productivity will occur through this digital transformation. And as we move to a more digital world, we are absolutely going to become, just massively more productive. I mean, massively, on the order of 25 to 30%, I think, is what we're going to see in the next 5 years. For organizations that truly embrace moving to a digital world. For people like Stephen, organizations that are dragging their feet and moving to a VPN environment, I think is it's going to hinder progress for certain. And I think as the move to working from home, working remotely, working anywhere at any time is certainly the way to go. As an example, we worked with a large organization that they used to have to do quarterly reporting where they would manually collect data from different systems, download them into Excel spreadsheets, convert them into graphs, putting them into a PowerPoint. By the time you did all that, it was 6 to 7 weeks. It would take 2 people to do that. Today, they're doing it with a push of the button, and it's giving you real-time metrics, real-time analytics, anytime you want them. So I think that's the kind of order of magnitude that we're looking at for this digital transformation, where it not only becomes more efficient, but we're able to see what's happening in real time. We're not working with old data, and that's a big part of what we're talking about in our upcoming book called Flow, which is all about flowing information and making it available to people to react to and act on immediately. And I think that's going to be really an important part of this transformation that we'll see in the future.
Okay, Rob, interesting you mentioned productivity. So there are 2 comments around that. So perhaps you could address those points before I move to Adam. So this is from Douglas Ubel. So he says, how do you measure productivity with buyers working from home? That's question number 1. And the other one is from Stephen Greenlee. And again, he's asking, how do we measure productivity? Because since you mentioned productivity, it'll be nice if you could elaborate this a bit more.
Well, I think productivity is a function of how quickly you can, complete your tasks, right, at the end of the day. And, for instance, one of the, we run an annual data quality and data governance survey, and some of our data shows that people spend as much as 2 or 3 hours of their workday trying to find the data that they need to do a particular task. So, you know, having digital access means easily being able to retrieve and access data that you require, you know, to make a decision. So I think, you know, just in terms of the volume of tasks, the volume of work you can do within an 8-hour day is the most, you know, easily, I guess, defined form of productivity I can think of. In the context of audits and quality assurance, you know, you want to be able to, you know, I think productivity is how well you can perform those audits, how quickly, obviously, but also, you know, how many suppliers are you able to, you know, identify major gaps and problems, and how easily are you able to work with those suppliers to address those issues and efficiently get them back into a compliant state. Maybe Adam, you're the expert on that. You can talk more about that as well.
Yeah, I think certainly from audit and assessment perspective, there's still, you know, if I think about the audits we do behalf on for customers and even the audits where I'm being audited, the auditors are subject to KPIs and performance in terms of ensuring that information is produced to certain standards and delivered in time, because obviously that information is critical potentially for selection of a supplier or as part of a contract negotiation. And I think as well, what we're seeing, and Rob mentioned it, is being able to, 4 or 5 people being able to access a document at the same time and actually complete the document or make changes to the document as it's going through has driven productivity, because we're almost in a position where a report could be quality checked, an audit report can be quality checked as it's being worked on, and things can be reviewed and changed, and it's an instant communication back and forth. For suppliers, and again, in terms of looking at non-conformances, the move to online non-conformance modules or corrective action modules, where suppliers are literally able to feed in evidence and data onto a system that notifies an auditor or a QA department to be able to see, okay, supplier A has provided evidence to demonstrate that the non-conformance has been closed out. You're not waiting for stuff to be emailed over. You're not waiting to revisit. Now, you know, there are going to be requirements depending on the nature of the audit, the nature of a finding, where there's still going to be a delay in terms of going and visiting a supplier, but you're removing a lot of time and a lot of wasted energy with being able to input that information, and it's there and it's live and it's being updated all of the time. And I think this is going back to the original sort of point in what Rob was saying, is that these cloud systems and these online management systems where suppliers and organizations can continually be updating, putting their information on, it's removing that old, right, we're going to spend a month sending out documents for people to review, to sign, to return. It's an ongoing thing now. It's a living and breathing system, and that's how it will reduce some of the delays that are associated with paper-based systems or with more clunky approaches in terms of data collection and management.
Okay, so I'd just like to read a comment from Damon Stewart. So he has mentioned about his experience about VPN, which seems to be very positive as opposed to the Steve's. So he says, hello, my company converted to full-time VPN for employees when COVID hit. It's worked perfectly, no technology issues, etc. So we are now moving all of the employees to the cloud. So should only get better. I have had my personal productivity skyrocket via work from home. I love it. But there are things I need to go to the office for. The key to me is the employer being flexible to the best benefit of the employee. I think that's a nice comment from Damon.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you know, I think in general people have seen their productivity skyrocket you know, and so long as you're, you know, maybe cranking on a spreadsheet or, you know, doing a lot of, you know, focused tasks, you know, there's fewer distractions, right? You're able to, you know, you're able to focus, you're able to get work done, and you're much more productive, so long as it's work that requires that kind of, you know, focus, and you can get up, you can walk around, you can have a cup of tea and what have you. And I think also we're seeing that organizations are seeing that the commute time, people, as Adam said, are for the most part very responsible, and you know, they're using that commute time that otherwise would be lost to in many cases to work, and are therefore extracting more time out of their day and are more productive, and you know, are with their families, and so they're happier. So there's a lot of benefits. And I think we also have to give people some leeway to be able to say, well, you know, if you want to come in, and we think there are definitely some kinds of things that require that engagement, or we need a meeting, we need people sitting together in a meeting room, and giving people the options to be able to do that in a flexible manner, you know, is important. I think, and there are some, you know, I think maybe having a 1 or 2 days a week where you do come in as a requirement is also good, and giving people, you know, open workspaces, collaborative workspaces, to be able to just hang around. And there's something to be said for, you know, management by walking around. And this has been around for a long time, where you're talking to different people. You know, you're much more integrated with the business. And that's a risk with the virtual environment, that you're losing that face time with people. I think it's also, you know, it's a function of understanding, you know, what people fall into which category, and who stays home and who comes in and when. This is largely dependent on the job function and on management approval. And you can't assume that the workers who would be more engaged in an office setting, you know, will necessarily need to be there, and that you know, particularly if there's a family situation that requires them to be home for children or elderly parents, it's a very complex set of scenarios, and I think it's a new world that we're dealing with. The other concern that people should be thinking about is, you know, if you're only a stay-at-home person, there's a risk that you know, wind up as a second-class corporate citizen. You can fall behind in promotions and pay, you know, and that you know, people who are office-based are going to get higher rates of advancement. So you know, companies also have to make sure that they're not biased in that way to just reward people who are coming in versus those who are working from home. So there's a lot of complex issues here.
Yeah,
This isn't a simple situation at all.
indeed. Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely concur with that. I think as I was saying, in terms of development, I think it's a major issue for people that are starting out, you know, with organisations. That, as Rob said, with his daughter and things like that. It's if that's a purely people coming to an office environment, but it being remote and at home, it's those, like I said, it's those engagements with other stakeholders that aren't directly within your team potentially, but those relationships help you to build and to expedite things. So if we spoke about productivity, you know, I'm lucky within my organisation, having worked there for such a long time, that if I need to speak to somebody in the finance department, I know who to speak to. But that was built through relationships over time, and it might be that I'm circumnavigating some processes or systems to do that. But if you've never been in that environment where you've built those relationships, then you're kind of stuck, and you're going through an online address book, sending emails or Skype meetings, whatever it might be, to try, you know, to hopefully get where you need to get to. So I think in terms of the sort of 1 to 2 days a week, or that hybrid approach, I think that's where we'll move to. I know if I think about some of the larger if I think about some larger organisations, that's already happened in some respects, but it's been for more predominantly for, if I think about business development activities, sales, where the term hot desking. Well, I don't necessarily see hot desking becoming a thing. Certainly, offices and people that I've spoken to, it's just not going to be allowed. You're going to need to book a desk. That's going to be where you are because of potential risks with spreading viruses and so on. I know of companies where Monday was empty, third of the office in, Tuesday maybe up to 45, 50%, Wednesday, Thursday 75, and then back down on a Thursday. So I think, we're going to see the same. We're going to see that it's going to be rolled out. But I think what you'll find, and it will depend on different countries and different regions in terms of their appetite for risk or control with COVID. But I think you'll see that a lot more. It will be more widespread, but it'll be stricter the way it's controlled. You book in on to be in the office on a Tuesday, you're there on the Tuesday, and you're at desk 20A or whatever, not just turning up, sitting there a few hours and then going somewhere else.
Okay, so Steve has just added his comment. Sorry, I must add that this increase in productivity while working from home is despite the whole school VPN system. If only we could come up to date. If only we could come up to date with a cloud-based system, I'm sure it would be a huge and visible difference. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for your comment. And in fact, there's another comment from Lorna Harrower. As a category manager, I've managed to work from home 100% of the time since February 2020. If you have access to shared documents for collaboration, chat functions for informal meetings with your stakeholders, virtual lunchtime catch-ups, etc., I see no impediment to be strategic and work with others from home most of the time. Again, thanks, Lorna, for your comment there. I think we still have a dozen slides left. We have only about 8 minutes on the clock. But it was a very interactive session. I mean, one of the reasons why we're holding this session is to interact with people. Perhaps this is the first time we have received so many comments even before we formally opened up the Q&A section. So I thought it's only fair that we start reading them out, without having to wait for about 40 minutes or so. Anyway, Mr. Can you please move forward? We will see what do we have left to discuss in the slide deck. Can you please move forward? Let's okay, since we have only about 6 to 7 minutes time, why don't we move to the this has been discussed. Why don't we move to the vaccination? I think we have a slow rate of vaccinations. Can we move to that slide, please? Next. Yeah. So we had asked people, by when do they expect normalcy to come back? I think that depends a lot about that depends a lot on the vaccinations. So US, of course, is really powered ahead in vaccinations. Europe is catching up, but large parts of the world is yet to catch up. Even though about 1 billion doses have been delivered, we still have a huge challenge when it comes to vaccinating people across the globe. Next slide, Mr. I think we have some data point in there, right? Can you move next slide, please? Yeah. So you could see, as per you, normal business situation will be restored in. That's what we had asked. The best part is about 38% of respondents said they don't know. 28% said a year, and about 6 months for 24%, and about 11% of people said 3 months. So, Rob, what do you think? When do you think we will go back to pre-COVID life?
I don't think we will. I think that I think we've reached the tipping point where there'll be pre-COVID and post-COVID, and people will look at it as this is the year. 2020 was the year when everything changed. Honestly, I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we'll return to a normal office setting where people go in. You know, we've been doing some work on the vaccinations, and with, as you said, with the variants, you know, with the Indian variant, you know, there'll be others that will continue to come in with air travel. People are flying again, and so I think we're going to continue to see these vaccines continue to spread, or I'm sorry, the variants continue to spread, and which will require booster shots, which will require vaccination campaigns. And we still have a lot of people here in the U.S. that do not want to get vaccinated, and that's going to cause problems in the work environment, because people will say, well, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to work if other people there aren't vaccinated, particularly with these variants going around. So there's, you know, this is an emotional issue. It's become something that I think is causing a lot of confusion and complexity in the workplace. And I think, as we've seen today, just to kind of pull it together, you know, some people absolutely love working from home. Some people hate it. You know, some people are, you know, want the best of both worlds. They want to work from home and go into the office. So it's all over the map in terms of you know, what people want and how organizations are going to deal with it. I think it's important that organizations, you know, become more flexible and allow people to work in the way that they want to work to be the most productive and to accommodate their own issues. You know, the vaccines and the rate of vaccinations and the rate of variants, that's something that we have no control over right now. We really have very little control over this. So I think we have to remain flexible, and we have to be able to put in work policies that will enable us to continue to be productive, to allow people to work in the way they want to work, and to accommodate their health preferences and their degree of risk. And it's really, each individual has a different level of risk that they're willing to accommodate relative to COVID. And I don't think we're going to see COVID go away completely for 5 years. And I think it will really be a permanent part of the work environment, where we're going to continue to require booster shots for the next, I think they're going to even maybe potentially combine the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine at some point. And we're going to continue to see that growth in that marketplace. I think vaccine capacity is growing significantly, especially in Q4 and Q1 of next year. We'll see much more availability of vaccines, and that's important, that we get everybody around the world vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Adam?
Yeah, in terms of when business will be restored, if I knew that, I'd probably be going out and getting a lottery ticket. So I couldn't tell you, to be honest, but I think I don't see things changing for a good few years yet. I think that term agile working is what I think we're going to see for quite a long time to come. I think we will see, if we use Australia as an example, where different states will shut down for a couple of weeks if there's a rise in cases. I think we'll see different levels of that, where companies might return, then there'll be a shutdown or a back to home working. I think it's how companies are able to deal with that, and I think that will be the case as long as there are variants, really, because anytime there's any change of or significant variant, we've been lucky so far that okay, it sounds like the variants might be more transmissible, but not necessarily resistant to vaccines. But it's a constant case of catch up, isn't it? Where the variant is out 2 to 3 weeks later, analysis, and then it's a case of changing work patterns or changing lifestyles. So I think some countries, you know, I have friends in Australia and New Zealand who would say that life is relatively close to normal. Some countries, if I think about the UK and Europe, they're too closely linked. There's too much business that's done and travel that I think you'll see large cases of quite reactive response in terms of government policy and also business policy. And I think that's why we're seeing that first slide about the 60% working from home. I think that's what you're seeing, is you're seeing different businesses with different risk appetites in different parts of the world with that same appetite. And that will always, I think that's what will be the same. That 60% will largely be the same, but it might be that for 6 months the UK is great and everybody's living, you know, it's normal life, and then there's a change and we have 6 to 8 weeks where it's different. America, I think that's what we're going to see. I think it's going to be a shifting pattern for the next few years.
Okay, thank you, Adam. I'll just read one comment here. This is from Heining Roos. If we do need to travel for meeting suppliers, we should also be able to be back in office. Thanks, Heining. Thanks for your comment on that one. I know we have actually run out of time, but then we missed addressing one important question about the audits. Adam, Rob, are you okay if we can extend this by 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Can you go back a bit? Slide number 12. Back one. Back. Go back, please. Yeah, so this I wanted to specifically address, Adam, maybe since you're a specialist in this one. So checking for adherence to local lockdown rules in supplier sites is going to be a big issue. I mean, now that Rob had said perhaps COVID is going to stay with us for quite some time, you know, maybe 3 years, 5 years, who knows, with emergence of new variants. So there are a lot of regulations, a lot of rules that many governments across the globe come up with, especially when it comes to how to manage your workplace, factories, etc. So Adam, what do you think, how this is going to impact in the days to come?
Yes, I think there's already regulatory bodies and standards, health and safety, like OSHA and HSE, that have already picked up on this and are already reviewing companies' adherence to guidance to minimise risk of spreading of COVID. From an audit perspective, we're seeing more customers interested in ensuring that their supply chains are able to adhere to controls within their facilities. Aside from the health and safety perspective, there's obviously the issue that if you have to shut down a facility or you have to shut down operations, that has big financial implications. So the importance of cleanliness and hygiene, but also walkways and space that's available, how you're managing whether it's a 50% that you're having into a facility at once, what one-way systems are in place, all of those kind of things are being picked up as part of audits now and are being looked at. You know, face masks effectively is really another form of PPE, which is always been looked at anyway. But also the controls that are in place to do with LiVE, so the extraction and air conditioning units, everything like that. So I think there's obviously legal requirements. There are acts in place now, and there's more monitoring from a regulatory perspective. But from a client perspective, looking at their supply chains, there's also an impetus and pressure on them ensuring that they're maintaining appropriate levels of COVID control, or however you want to call it, because there's big operational and output issues if you have to start shutting down lines, or you have to start shutting down parts of factories and having people to isolate. So it's becoming more and more important.
Okay, thank you so much, Adam. Rob, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think these kinds of measures will continue to be important. Even with people that are vaccinated. I know organizations I've worked with have put in entire procurement business functions that are literally will talk to suppliers and ensure that any suppliers that are coming on site are meeting these requirements They're trained in these requirements. They understand the limitations, and guaranteeing the safety of employees and ensuring that suppliers who are coming on site are validated and trained and understand these requirements, I think is going to become more important. You know, I think we're also looking at some companies are going to require vaccinations to be on site. They're simply going to say, you know, that's our company policy, and we have a right to be able to do that. I think, you know, government entities will also at some point start to require that as well. And, you know, this is going to be problematic because, again, there are some people that are really, you know, they're anti-vaxxers. I mean, they really do not want to be vaccinated. They're very opposed to it. And there's a lot of, you know, misinformation out there, I think, as to why they're not willing to do that. But, you know, in this kind of world that we're in, where there's so much social media floating around, you know, it's causing some confusion out there. But I think we're going to start to see some of these things gel a little bit, and I think you know, the providing more information to people and giving them options is going to be important. But there's also going to be a certain level of compliance, particularly for these kinds of basic measures.
Okay, fingers crossed. Thank you, Rob and Adam. That was a very insightful session on whether procurement operations can be permanently managed out of employee homes. We have received several more interesting questions and comments, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. We will reply by email to all the questions that were not answered in today's session. And a big thanks to people who have posted their comments. This marks the end of our session. A big thank you to all the participants for logging in today. Several of you had asked whether you know, would we be sharing the recording? Yes, we will be sharing the webinar recording link with all of you soon. Please do reach out to the email address on the screen if you have any additional questions or comments. We will definitely ship it to our guests. This marks the end of our session. Thank you. Have a good day. And for those of you in Asia, good night.